So we learned that an atom is made out of a nucleus at the center of an atom, and then there are electrons which rotate or which orbit the nucleus in shells. So electronic structure is a representation of the distribution of the electrons in the electron shells around the nucleus. So electrons always occupy shells. These shells are called energy level because each shell has a certain amount of energy. They have different energies. And the electron shells, which are closer to the nucleus, will have lower energy than the ones which are far from the nucleus. So as you go away from the nucleus, the energy of the electron shell will increase. The lowest energy level is filled first when the electrons start to fill the different or occupy the different energy shells. So the one which are closer to the nucleus will be filled first, and then the one which are further away from the nucleus. Each energy shell has a maximum capacity of electrons. So the first energy shell has a maximum of 2 electrons. So just 2 electrons can occupy the first energy shell. So if an atom has more than 2 electrons, then the third electron will occupy the second energy shell, and so on. The second shell has a maximum of 8 electrons. That means that the first 2 electrons will go to the first shell, the following 8 electrons will go to the second shell. So if an atom has more than 8 electrons, and more than 10 electrons, the 11th electron will occupy the third shell. And the third shell as well has a maximum of 8 electrons. There are the inner shells and there are the outer shell of electrons. So the inner shells are the ones which are full, which are closer to the nucleus, and the outermost shell is the energy shell, which is the furthest away from the nucleus, which has electrons. Normally, most elements have incomplete outer shell of electrons, and the number of the electrons in the outer shell is responsible for the reactivity of the different elements. We can work out the electronic structure or the electronic configuration of any element by looking at how many electrons they have. For example, what is the electronic structure of carbon? Carbon has an atomic number of 6, which means it has a total number of electrons of 6, and the electronic configuration of carbon would be 2 and 4. 2 because the first electron shell will have 2 electrons, and then the following 4 electrons will occupy the second electron shell. Another example, what would be the electronic structure or electronic configuration of magnesium? Magnesium has an atomic number of 12, which means it has 12 electrons, and then the electronic configuration of magnesium would be 2, 8, and 2. The electronic structure can be shown as a diagram or as numbers. As the one that we have just seen. Another example is potassium. So potassium has an atomic number of 19, so it has a total of 19 electrons. The electronic structure or electronic configuration of potassium, if you want to represent it with numbers, would be 2881. So there are a total of 4 different energy shells. And we can also represent it using the diagram where we draw the different energy levels with the maximum number of electrons they have, or with the number of electrons in each. So the first one was 2 electrons, the second one was 8 electrons, the third one was 8 electrons. All of these are the inner shell, which are full, and then the outer shell will only have 1 electron, and this is the outer shell, which is not